Next up, we have Chris Hansen. Chris, thank you so much for being with the Energy and Environment Committee.
Yeah, great to see everybody. A very warm hello from Western Colorado. I now live in Durango and run a cooperative electric company named La Plata Electric System. So great to be with everybody today. I've known Senator Solomon for many years, and in our interactions as legislators, I've recently left the Colorado Senate, and so it's great to be back with the legislature. And I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but appreciate the option to join remotely. Let's go ahead and go on to the next slide. I think you'll find my presentation maybe in slight contrast to the one you just heard. I'm also a nuclear engineer like Katie, finished BS in nuclear engineering from Kansas State, where I grew up in Kansas, then went on to do a systems engineering master's at MIT and a PhD in energy economics from Oxford. Followed that with about 10 years in the private sector, working on energy system planning all over the world, and eventually made the same poor decision everybody in the room made and decided to run for office. And so left the private sector in 2016 and ran for the Colorado House, and spent 3 years in the House, 5 years in the Senate. And just finished up my service at the beginning of January. So it's a little bit about my background, and have been part of a very vibrant, similar debate in Colorado, both in my job as a state senator, but also now evaluating different options as the head of an electricity company. So I really appreciate the chance to address the committee. Let's go on to the next slide. Just a few things to share with you today. I think first and foremost was to zoom out just a little bit. We are part of the West. Just like you, Colorado is in the unfortunate situation of not being in a coordinated Western grid. We have 37 uncoordinated systems, which raises costs for all of our customers and all of our members in the case of co-ops. And so that's sort of our starting point as we go into this, as we think about needing new generation or additional generation options. One of the first things we can do is do a better job of coordinating our grids. And I look forward to working with Oregonians on that very task as we stitch together the grid in the West. If we go on to the next slide, one of the reasons this is so important is because the grid is weakest where we have lots of ability to generate more electricity. And so this is a map that was created a couple of years ago by the Department of Energy and NREL, looking at where is there potential for more solar, wind, and battery installations. And you can see the grid relatively weak in the middle part of the country, and so that contributes to some of our issues of getting more generation online more quickly. Let's go on to the next slide, though, as we dive into the nuclear topic. This is a graph that I think is really instructive and is in a bit of a sharp contrast from what you just saw shared by NEI. I am a big fan of NEI. I am very pro-nuclear in my outlook, but I do think we need to look at current contracts and current pricing in the market and make sure that we're looking really carefully at the cost profile of nuclear energy. And so this is a chart that's pulled together by Lazard every single year. This is the very latest data that they've published from 2024. Keep in mind, Lazard is an investment bank in New York. They're not one side or the other politically, but this is just a mark-to-market exercise of what does it cost right now to do each of these technologies. So you can see that, and I should point out, this is without any subsidies for any of these technologies. So no PTCs or ITCs, that's all been taken out. This is the cost of electricity for each of these units, and you can see wind and solar there at the bottom of the chart, followed by geothermal and combined cycle gas, and then you see the nuclear pricing that we're seeing in the market right now at about $182 per megawatt hour with the existing contracts that we've seen delivered. So if we go on to the next slide, want to give a little bit of a sense of what's happening with developments around the world. This is the chart that the Financial Times put out just a couple weeks ago. I think kind of important to look at, in the US, the UK, France, Finland, many countries that are building new reactors, all listed here on this chart. But you can see kind of the amount of time and the increased costs that all of these reactor projects have experienced. Vogtle, which was mentioned in the previous presentation in Georgia, that was put forward by Southern Company. And you can see the original estimate was $6,000 per kilowatt of installed capacity. That rose to almost $15,000 per kilowatt of installed capacity, and took about 10 extra years based on the original plan. So significant delays, significant cost overruns that we're seeing in the market right now. And so we just wanted to share, I think, these important data points with you as you think about these options in Oregon. If we go on to the next slide, the other, I think, important drill down here is we wanted to concentrate today on small modular reactors, and many of these same technologies were just mentioned in the previous discussion. I am super excited about these technologies, but unfortunately, we're not seeing cost reductions right now in the marketplace. And so what this chart is showing from the IEEFA, which is Energy Economics Institute that published this a few weeks ago, they were looking at what has happened to each of these technologies from the first estimates that were put out in 15 and 17 and 2020, and then where are those estimates today as people are thinking about starting construction in some of these on some of these technologies. And you can see a pretty rapid increase in costs. Again, this is in dollars per kilowatt. That's going to be important as we get to my last slide, because all of these are showing above $10,000 per kilowatt installed. So pretty high costs compared to where they started, and exceptionally high costs compared to some of the other alternatives in the marketplace. So let's go on to the next slide. And the next slide shows some of the key insights from this will be my last slide, and looking forward to the discussion. Columbia University just put out a cost modeling study that indicates in the US that unless you can get below $6,000 per kilowatt of installed capacity, it's likely that nuclear power will have a marginal role in the portfolio going forward. And that is not a result I'm happy about, but unfortunately, it's kind of where we are right now with the cost profile of these new technologies, especially on the small modular reactors. And there are other firm, clean options such as geothermal, hydro, and pumped hydro that are likely to provide very stiff competition for nuclear in the marketplace, especially in the West as we continue to build more integrated grid and regional transmission organizations. And if you think about grid enhancing technologies, upgraded grid capacity, reconductoring, those expansions and upgrades are likely to be more cost effective than new nuclear in the near term and the medium term. And keep in mind, new nuclear, right? No one's planning on that new capacity for at least 10 years. And so this is really, what are we thinking about as options for 2035 and beyond? But these, I think, are really important to look at the current pricing, understand where the market is right now. Is there potential for these costs to go down? I certainly hope so, but unfortunately, we're just not seeing much evidence for that in the current market. And additional tariffs on aluminum and other products will likely cause even further escalation to the raw materials that will go into the potential construction here. So I, again, am very hopeful about nuclear potential, but the pricing that we're seeing in the market right now and the projects that we've seen around the world demonstrating that we're still at very high cost levels. And so that's been one of the main things on our minds here in Colorado as we think about the potential for nuclear and what options we're going to implement over the next 10 years. So again, appreciate you having me today, and of course, happy to answer any questions for the committee.
Chris, thank you so much for being with us virtually. Appreciate your service and understanding.
One quick second, sorry.
Senator Pham has asked that we keep the slide up. Thank you. Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to finish reading it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Any questions for not just Chris, but all the panelists that were here today to give information?
A comment, if I may, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to say that having heard and met Senator, I'm still going to say Senator Hansen, at a couple conferences, I'm really appreciative of his public service. He's really been a leader in this field as many states are struggling with these questions. As you can tell, he's knowledgeable and clear, and I just want to take an opportunity to thank him for all he's done in the public sector and looking forward to more in the private sector.
Great.
Thank you so much, Senator. Appreciate that.
Go ahead. I have a question after you.
Oh, please.
Thank you so much, Senator. I really appreciate your comments about the cost effectiveness of different sources of energy. Can you talk a little bit more about solar and wind? Because I'm hearing a lot of information about how long it takes to do nuclear and how much it might be faster given the time frame to actually just invest in solar or wind, but I don't see that in the comparison for geothermal and hydro. Can you talk a little bit about the competition for both the financial costs as well as the time to get these new energy capacity up and running?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, the kind of temporal aspect of these questions is so important because, of course, we have immediate decisions we need to make about additional generation between now and 2035. And then, of course, we always want to look at, what might be the long-term portfolio options as we get into, 10 and 20 years later. I would say on the solar and wind side, particularly solar projects can be developed relatively quickly. There's always, as Oregonians know well, we got to go through permitting and get local permission, and that's certainly the case here in Colorado. So it's never an easy energy project. Doesn't matter what you're doing. That's also true on transmission lines, whether they're upgrades or new transmission lines. Wind projects, the same thing, can take 5 or 6 years to get all the permitting done. So nothing's fast. But what we can definitely see from things like the Vogtle construction and the process that it takes to get new reactors licensed at the NRC is that is going to be a lengthy process, and that really new small reactors, other than a couple of demonstration projects or first of the kind units, are likely not available before 2035. So a longer time frame there, and historically that has certainly been the case. I've been in the energy industry for basically my whole career, and we've had a similar amount of enthusiasm back in the mid-2000s. And everyone was looking, we're going to be able to turn these projects around quickly, and that didn't happen. And unfortunately, Vogtle, was about 12 years over the original timeline. So lots of delays, unfortunately, in past projects. And I know the small reactor operators are trying to shorten that, but still several hurdles in front of us.
Follow up. Thank you so much, Senator. So can you give me just so I can have a sense of comparison? Because you wrote here that nuclear costs are $6,200 a kilowatt hour. What is it for geothermal and hydro? Is that what I'm reading?
Oh, sorry. So no, the Columbia University the study that I was sharing was saying if nuclear costs are above $6,200, that likely results in a relatively marginal role in new construction. So that was the idea I was trying to share, is that right now we're seeing pricing for small modular reactors above $10,000 per kilowatt, and unless they can see significant reductions, it's not likely to be a big part of future portfolios. So that was the point I was trying to make there. Were you asking about what are we seeing on geothermal? Is that the second part of your question?
I have a two-part question,
Yeah.
so thank you for the first part.
Yeah. So on geothermal, there is some. If we go back a couple of slides to the Lazard LCOE graph, go back one more. I believe geothermal's on here. So this is the latest pricing information that Lazard has compiled. They're at about $169 per megawatt hour right now on a levelized cost basis. That's still, fairly expensive. There are some great demonstration projects happening in Nevada right now with Fervo Energy leading those, and in part getting support from the Department of Energy on those, and have contracts with Google and with NV Energy. So that's one example that might be worth looking at for the committee. But geothermal is still relatively nascent, at scale. And so we're seeing downward pressure on these prices, but still a long ways to go for it to be fully competitive.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris, thank you. And so I have a question to go to the timeline for Chris or anyone who wants to jump in. Of course, Oregon, we've banned nuclear and the waste. You've spoken about, these technologies really won't be there until 2035. When it comes to Oregon, and one of the reasons why I proposed these pieces of legislation is so that we can get in the queue, because can you kind of help us explain how, if we start today, we won't be able to even look at even citing a project until 2035 or longer?
Well, yeah, and I think it makes perfect sense to look at all the options on the table. That's certainly what we're doing in Colorado. The IOUs here, Excel is our big provider. They are evaluating the cost profile of nuclear right now. Tri-State is our G&T here. They are looking at the cost profile and evaluating it against these other options you're seeing on the chart here. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to do that, and to look at siting options, to look at grid interconnection options, because these things take a lot of time. And I think that's just a wise thing to do, to have optionality. And what I was wanting to share today is just kind of, here's the latest information we're seeing from projects and from accumulated cost data. And we need to keep our options open here, and there are absolutely long lead times.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for our panelists? Okay. Well, with that.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much. With that, we will close.